Is that something that amazes you that even to this day people come up to you and they still get all excited talking to you about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they come up and ask me, was it real? Was it real?
Yeah.
And they still get all excited about it. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's cool, but I can't believe that they've asked that it's real. You know, and plus I thought it was the biggest joke that they ever did.
Yeah.
You know, when they first came up to ask me to do it, I said no.
Did you?
Yeah, because they already had everybody. They had 15 guys.
Yeah.
They come up and wanted me to do it. And that's when I wasn't working. They brought to do nothing and show up at TV. And they wanted me to do it. I said, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
They go, why not? I go, it's stupid. This is pro wrestling. It's a work. You're going to try to mix it. It's not going to work. It's going to be stupid.
Yeah.
You know, come on, we want you to do it. Bruce Pritchard.
Okay.
Bugged me. And then
Kevin Kelly?
Kevin Kelly, the announcer. So he was down in IWF. And he's seeing me down there with some of the other guys do some other guys. Thunder and Lightning.
Okay.
Remember Thunder and Lightning from back in WCW
Sure.
or whatever. Anyways.
Oh, yes, I do.
Big muscle heads.
Yes.
Well, they thought they were tough one day and kind of called me out. So I went in the ring and I just ate them up.
Wow.
And they couldn't believe it. They're like, how can you do that? And they were all just gassed to the gills. You know, they were blown up.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's what I do.
Yeah.
And Kevin remembered that because Kevin was there. It was like we were there working out, practicing all that. He goes, man, I saw what you got, man. You go kill everybody. Da da da.
Uh-huh.
He says the winner gets a shot with Austin. Going to get a big run with Austin. Do it for that.
Yeah.
You know. I was like, well, and then actually Kevin Kelly talked me into it, and Billy. You know. I said, okay, I'll do it. You know, and that's how I got in it.
Didn't it seem kind of silly that they would take something so real like the fight in the tournament and then have the winner have a wrestling match with Steve Austin?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was like the big, you know. But see what the whole gimmick was, bringing Dr. Death in, because he's the legitimate tough guy of wrestling, and they were going to bring him in. He was going to come through, win this tournament, and then they were going to do the thing with the names, Williams, and they were going to have big controversy. That was just a way to bring Steve in and give him credibility when he came in.
Yeah, because that's what Steve has said on the shoot in the past, that the thing was designed.
Oh, you had Steve on here?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure he didn't say nice things about me.
I don't remember. I didn't do the interview. I remember watching it. But one thing that I remember that stuck out was, and I had him on my radio show too, and he said on my radio show that the thing was designed for him to get over to wrestle Steve Austin.
Right.
And you don't know if somebody's just telling you that to blow smoke up your rear
No,
end.
that was all designed.
Okay.
Because you can't, you can quote me, obviously, because I'm going to say it.
Right.
It was rumored that they were already doing interviews of him winning before he even won. That's how carried away. And if you remember watching the show, because I wrote a nasty letter to Vince.
Okay.
Or a letter to Vince. It wasn't, nasty. It's just my personal opinion. It wasn't a kiss-ass letter. But they were doing all the stuff. They brought Barry, the coach for the Sooners.
Barry Switzer.
Right. Brought him talking about Steve. They did all these vignettes with Steve and Steve. Okay, that's one guy. You got 15 other guys. They weren't doing squat on any of those guys. And every show, they were doing all this stuff with him.
Yeah.
So, come on,
Yeah.
And that got me heat, too, because I opened my mouth about that.
Wow. Now, when you finally did decide, what was it that made you say, all right, I'll do it?
Kevin Kelly and Billy. They said, come on, do it, and get a shot. Then you'll get your shot. Then you'll get a chance to be up there where I wanted to be. Work with the top guy.
Yeah, you would think it would be a guaranteed push.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what he said. It's a guaranteed push. Kevin Kelly told me that. Guaranteed push. And thinking about it, it would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they even said it, The winner was going to have a big match on pay-per-view at the SummerSlam or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah. Now, when you finally did decide to go into the tournament, did you start training? Did you set up a camp or anything?
No, I didn't. No. I just kept doing what I do.
Really?
Just lifted, yeah.
Wow.
There were 3 1-minute rounds. So there's not really, I didn't do like some of these other guys did. They went and started fighting and doing all this other. Some guys found out about it because they were getting calls. Okay. They never called me. They waited until I come to the show and asked me about it.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I said, no. Then finally, by the end of the night, I said yes.
Okay. But you didn't get a coach or anything like that?
No, not at all.
Wow.
Nothing.
Wow. Now, by that time, as you were going into this tournament, had you seen UFC by this point?
Well, yeah, I've seen it, but I never was, I won't say a big fan of it. I mean, I just never watched it because wrestling, I just never got around to where I could watch it.
Yeah.
You know, being in the sticks in Kentucky, you know, just where I was at, it wasn't a big thing.
Yeah. Now, with Dan Severn in the tournament, were you aware of how his reputation?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Didn't bother you?
No. I went in knowing I was going to win.
Did you?
That sounds cocky, but I wouldn't have done it if I knew I wasn't going to win.
Yeah.
You know, I can remember Paul Bearer sitting there, you know, as I was in the locker room. I think we were in Pittsburgh, and he kind of looked at me because they were talking about it and all that. I wasn't getting excited or nothing. I was just kind of, you know, sitting there. I don't know if it started yet or it did start, but I didn't fight or nothing. Like, you know, I haven't fought yet or anything.
Yeah. And
he kind of looks at me and he goes, they ought to be worried about you. I go, why me? He says, you're the sleeper. And I go, what do you? He goes, and he kind of made a comment about it. And I remember that because he said it.
Yeah.
And it just always stuck with me. You know, and then I remember after it was over, he just kind of, he didn't really have too much to say about it. He just kind of acknowledged it.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow. Now, when you were doing the tournament, were you on the road wrestling too, or was that at the time when you were just home?
Very few matches. So I was still tagging with Bobby.
Okay.
Very little, and they were kind of breaking us up, and that was kind of ironic. My first match was against Bobby.
Yes.
And I thought that was horseshit.
Yes.
Once again, taking a tag team, they could have put us in different brackets, and if we would have made it to the finals, then that would have been another big angle. The team, you know, the two partners on the team are in the finals.
Yeah.
You know, but they put us on the same bracket, same everything, which was, you know, and actually we talked, you know, and we drove with Bobby. I rode with Bobby that night. We rented a car and we stayed in the same hotel that night. Yeah. That was strange.
That is strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we, you know, and we talked to, you know, and even though it was a shoot, they still talked because they came up to us. He says, okay, whoever loses, get mad at the other one after it's over and shove them, push them, and da-da-da-da. Or like, I'm like, what? I'm not worried about doing work shit when we're going to do a shoot. So that, you know, that's fine. So me and Bobby actually made an agreement before we even went out. We said, okay, we won't do any takedowns. We won't do takedowns. Okay. Because I have, you know, I did wrestle and all that, and I don't know if he did too, but we decided, hey, because actually the show, it was kind of boring because the guys weren't really fighting. They were just kind of getting out there and just swinging. And it wasn't good. It was actually being down. So we decided to go out and slug it out. Yeah. Okay, cool. Because Bobby's, like I said, very physical, very tough. Say, hey, it sounds good to us. You know, it sounds good to me. And wow. And got him. And I remember because he had a big old goose on his eye. Yeah. You know, and then it was over. Then he got mad, shoved me in the face, and then that's when people started thinking it was a work because all that. You know, I was like, that was, you know, I thought to myself, that was so stupid. Da-da-da-da-da. So that night we went home, we not went home together, but we, you know, got in the car and went to the hotel. It was kind of funny, you know, because I just beat him, you know, knocked him out of the thing, you know, and we're still friends and it never affected our friendship. Yeah. It was a competition, you know. Yeah. It was very strange. You know, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to hit somebody, you know, because we're buddies, you know. Yeah.
I would guess with some of the other guys too, like you know, they were also guys you'd been on the road with for a while, and you know, now you're put in a position where you got to slug your buddy, right? You know, for real. But Bobby, I was actually traveling with, you know. Did you have a boxing background or?
No, I did. You know, wrestled in school. Okay. You know, did great. Goofed off, went to state, destroyed everybody that beat me at state. I beat earlier in the year. Okay. That's because I was chasing girls and doing all that, doing a hot shot, doing all that sort of stuff. Won a tough man in Orlando. You know, I got in trouble and had to get some money, so they had a tough man. So I went and fought and won $2,000 and took care of the trouble I was in. And just been in tons and tons of fights. Okay. You know, just brawls, all, you know, town construction, just a kid. You know, we were fighting every weekend. It's just, you know, back in, you know, we're talking, you know, 25 years ago. That's all we did. Wow. That's what, you know, talking back in the 80s, early 80s. You know, 78, 79, 80, we fought. Yeah. Or kids fought. You know, there wasn't so much knives and guns and people stabbing. You have to worry about it. Just went out and people just fist fight, you know. Yeah. So. I mean, I remember for years hearing the reputation that Steve Williams, everybody used to say he was the toughest guy in the business. Right. Now, I even heard it before I even got into the business. Okay. So you're going out there to fight him. Did that play into it in your psyche that this guy's supposed to be this big tough guy, or did it actually motivate you more that you wanted to put him down? Actually, what happened was Steve was in a whole different bracket, and I saw him fight Pierre,
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't very impressed. I was like, well, okay. My fight with Bob wasn't too impressed, but I know me and I know what I can do. Da-da-da. He wasn't even my thing. Bruce Pritchard calls me up on the telephone. Interesting story. God's honest truth. He calls me on the telephone. He says, hey, da-da-da, I just want to let you know. It was like Friday or Thursday. You know, coming to Raw on Monday. And I just want to let you know you're going to be fighting Steve Williams. I said, really? He says, yeah. I go, well, isn't that interesting? You guys are moving the brackets around. I thought this was all supposed to be fair and stuff like that. He goes, oh, you know, and he gave me some big garbage thing. I said, we're not even in the same bracket. Well, they decided to do this, that, and, you know, and the other. I was like, well, I said, okay. I says, and he goes on, I said, you sure you want to do this, Bruce? He says, yeah, why? I says, well, am I going to get any heat? He says, what do you mean get heat? I said, well, obviously you want Steve to win this. I said, you want Steve to win this. It's obvious by the vignettes you're doing and all that. You're not paying attention to the other guys. It's just strictly him. I says, if you want, I said, why don't you save me and him for the end, let it go to the end, and I'll work it, and I'll let him beat me. He goes, oh, no, that won't be necessary. I said, well, I get heat when I beat him. Oh, that'd be great if you can knock him out. I go, I didn't say anything about knocking him out. I'll beat him. He goes, oh, no, there won't be any heat. There won't be any heat. So, all right. Hang up the phone. And I'm just freaking steaming just because his whole attitude. So, fly out to Anaheim. Or I guess it was Anaheim that it was. I pull up at the TV and I'm just burning. It's just been eating me all weekend. Yeah. I get there, Pat Patterson comes up to me. Oh man, you're gonna knock out Steve Williams, huh? And I look at him, I said, I never said that. And he's going, oh, blah, blah. And I'm just getting so mad. So mad by the time, you know, and I've talked to Steve before that. He goes, yeah, this is stupid, you know, it should just be a work and da-da-da. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, they should work it, but why are they gonna decide who's gonna win the work? And, you know,
yeah.
And I said, you know, that's fine. I said, but it's a shoot and that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, and he goes, yeah, you know, there was no any heat over it before. I said, well, okay, so we went out to fight, and then I guess apparently I was behind on the scorecards and all that when I wasn't. So I remember taking him down.
Okay.
You know, I took him down. He's like, holy shit, you know, and then anyways, there was like 15 seconds left in the fight. I catch him with a beautiful left hook. Out he goes. He's out. He's out for like 5 minutes.
Wow.
He was out that long. They went to commercial.
Yeah.
And then they brought Owen Hart out when they came back because it's live TV.
Yeah.
They brought Owen Hart out because Steve's still in the ring.
Wow.
They can't get him out of the ring because he's out. You know, the distract and all that. Anyways, Jim Ross is steaming because that's his boy.
Exactly.
And it's his boy. So Jim Ross is livid because he's been telling everybody in the office, Steve says, I'm bringing Steve in, brought him in from All Japan and this thing, right? Well, of course, everybody's heard about. You know, so I'm, getting Japan's calling me. You know, it's great because Steve's a big star.
Yeah.
In Japan. So Jim Ross is fuming. You know, and then of course you got Jerry Lawler and all these guys were all needling Jim Ross because that's all Jim Ross has talked about for weeks.
Yeah.
Yes, Steve. They're just shoving it down. So it's kind of like poetic justice. So then I was supposed to fight Dan Severn. Okay. Dan Severn pulls out.
Yeah.
Okay. So we fought with 22-ounce gloves. I knocked Steve out with 22-ounce gloves. You know, so Dan pulls out.
Yeah.
I'll say it now because I'm doing MMA now. I think Dan was afraid he was going to get his ass knocked out, which would destroy his career.
Right.
So they brought Godfather back in. So I fight him. Of course, knock him out in the second round, I guess.
He's another guy that had a big reputation for being a tough guy.
Big reputation. Yeah. Everybody thought he was going to walk through me. They thought, everybody said I got lucky. Jim Ross said I got lucky. Actually, that's what it was. Jim Ross, I'll go back a little bit. Jim Ross, on the next Monday Night Raw, said, Bart Gunn got lucky with a punch and da-da-da. And I know Steve, and he's going to come back and he's going to have vengeance. And he just went on talking about Steve.
Yeah.
I said, fuck this.
Yeah.
So I wrote a letter, da-da-da, to Vince McMahon. I said, Vince, I've done everything you've ever asked. I've done all the jobs. I've worked with you. I've never had a push. We've never had a push. Me and Billy. I've never had a push. I've worked. I've done everything that you asked. I'm doing something on my own, a legitimate thing. And the guy's knocked out. His hamstrings tore and all this stuff. He got knocked out. He said it happened before. When he got knocked out, everything tore.
Yeah.
That's the way it happened. He'll tell you different, but I know.
Right.
And because you watch the tape and see, he's fine. And I wrote all this stuff. I says, for Jim Ross to do this, I says, it's stupid. I says, I have a legitimate chance. You got something to run with. and he's not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
And I said it to Vince. I got Vince's fax number. I called, faxed it to Vince. Vince Russo called me up. I said, hey, I read that letter. What the letter I sent to Vince? He says, yeah, Vince. I said, did Vince read it? He said, yeah. I go, that was pretty ballsy. And I go, well, am I fired? He goes, no, actually, Vince likes stuff like that. He says, you're right to the point. He says, let's go ahead and just keep going and see what happens.
Wow.
So, and Vince, I think Vince came up and talked to me about it, but just kind of just smoothed it over.
Yeah.
And then anyway, I fought Godfather. Everybody thought he was going to walk through me, da-da-da. Of course, I knocked him out.
Yeah.
Jim Ross comes up to me. He's mad as hell. Because they come up to me, he says, get on Jim Ross when I was in the ring after I did that. So I went over and yelled at Jim Ross, blah, 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 blah. What do you think about now? Give him a little bit of respect and whatnot. Because I got so much anger. I'm built up. I'm mad. So I go back. Jim Ross comes. He said, well, I didn't want to say anything to you before the fight because I didn't want to affect it. He says, to tell you the truth, we didn't think anybody could take Steve off his feet. We never thought, or in a million years, he would get knocked out. We didn't think anybody would get knocked out with 22-ounce gloves. He says, not only did you knock Steve out, you knocked Godfather out, but you fucked it all up because you knocked him out with your right. Because they were building the golden left.
Okay.
So he was mad about that. And I'm like, oh, excuse me,
yeah.
It's a shoot?
Yeah.
And I'm going to worry about a gimmick?
Right.
He said, you got to be kidding me. And then I went on and fought Bradshaw, and that was first.
Another guy that had a big reputation.
Another big reputation. Yeah. So all four guys. They're all tough guys.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So it was anything but a cakewalk as far as your opponents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was just like, but what really made me mad was Bruce Pritchard going around the office telling everybody I was going to knock Steve out. But I didn't say that. I said I was going to beat him. Mm-hmm. And then Pat Patterson coming up to me. I've known Pat ever since I've been in, went up there. Mm-hmm. Always nice and everything. It just pissed me off.
Yeah.
I go, no, I didn't say that, and I was so glad it happened that way. I could not have been any happier. I was sorry that he got hurt and everything like that, but it was such a sweet, not just because I won, it was just like a slap in their face.
Yeah.
To the office's face.
Did any of the boys come up to you after and be like, come on, it was a work?
No,
the boys all knew.
The boys all knew because everybody was getting hurt.
Okay.
I mean, they were getting broken noses and everything was getting bloodied and goose eggs and all that stuff, which is another thing because here these guys are out here wrestling and then you got to follow that and go out and wrestle. Yeah. And they're working punches and all that. But after Steve got knocked out, then the Brawl for All came back alive. Yeah. Because it was these guys are actually pounding and guys are getting knocked out. They don't care about people who's going out and swinging, because a lot of times they get tired. I think the only thing that saved me, I never got tired. They get tired and their hands would go down. Yeah. But then, Bobby was good. Steve, my confidence score sky high. Godfather even went higher than, I could have went to a brick wall with Bradshaw. He was just in a bad spot.
Did you ever go into a fight with a certain strategy or you just went, whatever happens, happens?
No, it just happens.
Yeah. Like you weren't like, I'm going to take this guy down. I'm going to stand up with this guy.
No.
Okay.
No, nothing. Okay. It's just whatever. It's a fight, so you got to.
Did you try and play it more of a defensive counter, or more did you try and push the tempo?
I've tried to push it a couple times, but on the Bradshaw, he came out and hit me first. Yeah. I was going to get off first, jab him first. He jabbed me first. And I'm like, wow, where'd that come from? Same thing with Godfather.
Yeah.
Because he's got great skills. Back he's I'm an ugly fighter. I'm very ugly. I have heavy hands, but I'm ugly. You look at me and you go, oh my God. The thing is, I have heavy hands, I hit hard, and I can take a punch. Yeah.
Were you, was Steve the one that surprised you the most that went down, or you knew that? You were just so confident in yourself that you knew you were going to put him down?
Well, I didn't really think anybody would get knocked out because the gloves were so big and there wasn't enough time. But then once he went down, then I knew everybody could go down. Even myself. If anybody can get knocked out or if they get caught right. Yeah. But you just figure 22-ounce gloves, those suckers are like putting a pillow on your hand. Yeah. Yeah. It's just I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. I mean, I've done that all my life.
Yeah. Do you think that concept, the Brawl for All, could work today?
No.
No.
No. It'd be another disaster.
Yeah.
Guys would get hurt, and what would happen, if you notice, all the guys that got into Brawl for All were all mid-carders. Mm-hmm. There was no top guys. No top guy. Shamrock was there then. Mm-hmm. Shamrock was the top guy. Plus, he has a big star in the UFC.
Sure. So
if he got in it, what would happen? Because he even said this, he said, why am I going to get in it and take a chance of getting it's to destroy my career? For what? He said, I'm not going to do that. He said, it's stupid. He said, anybody can get caught. He said, I'm not going to. And plus, he was a top guy then. So he wasn't going to do it. He wasn't going to take the chance or risk. That's the reason Severn jumped out.
Yeah.
You know, because he just took Godfather down and held him down. You're supposed to let him up so they could do it again, but he wouldn't. You know.
Yeah.
That was, the whole thing was a joke.
I would probably think if Severn thought he was going in to fight Doc in the next round, being that it would be a wrestling match, Severn would probably think, okay, I could out-wrestle this guy easy, but maybe I can't out-fight this guy.
Yeah. Well, that too, and maybe he didn't realize the gloves would be such a hindrance. I mean, I'll give Dan the benefit of the doubt, you know, because they are big gloves, and you can't wrestle like he wrestles, you know, because you have the fingerless gloves. Big difference, you know, because he's used to wrestling. You can't wrestle in those gloves. But you couldn't wrestle anyway. All you could do is take down and then let him up. Yeah. There was no submission, so I don't know.
Now after that, of course, you would go to fight at WrestleMania, but before that, in between, you went to All Japan.
Yes. Because they weren't using me.
Yeah, I was going to say,
once again, they say I had one match, and they wanted me to do the discus throw and all that stuff. Well, after knocking guys out, it just wasn't clicking, so they sent me home.
Yeah.
Wasn't using me.
Wow.
And I go, Vince, Russo, what's the deal? Where's my match with Austin?
Yeah.
Well, nothing. You know, in the finals, and actually the finals was supposed to be on a pay-per-view.
That's right. Yes.
But no, since me and Bradshaw was in the finals, they threw it on Monday Night Raw. You know, so that was another thing that irritated me. And then plus I was supposed to have a run with Austin.
Yeah.
I'm going, hey, where's my run? Where's my run? And like, man, we don't know what to do with you. You know, it was too brutal. You knocked everybody out. We don't know how to use you.
Yeah.
We're working on it. So meanwhile, I'm sitting at home. Japan's calling, you know that. I call Johnny Ace. Say, hey Johnny, you know, I didn't know him, you know. I said, hey, because I got some numbers from some guys.
Okay.
And I got Johnny's number. I said, hey, let come over to Japan. He said, you know, they actually had a tag tournament. So I went over and was Johnny's partner.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Did Austin ever talk to you and be like, hey, you know, I want to do this match. I think it would be hot.
Well, we weren't going to have a Brawl for All match.
I mean after to do the program.
He didn't say that. I mean, it was like a dead issue almost, you know. It was just, because I think he was already in a program, but it was something that was going to develop, you know. Yeah. But it didn't happen because my last name wasn't Williams, I guess. Yeah. You know, and I wasn't JR's boy.
Right.
You know, and he's so mad because it was a big joke. And actually, I still have around there a little bit because Steve come out and jumped me. I had a match with Bob Holly, a hardcore match. Great match. Boom, boom, boom. And Steve comes out, boom, and throws me off. Bob comes down, pins me, da-da-da.
Yeah.
And they're like, who's that? Who's that? And a couple weeks later, he comes off with a mask. And God, it was a big joke. And that was right around the time I fought Butterbean.
Yes.
And that was like the week or two before Butterbean.
Wow. Now, when you went over to All Japan, you did the tag tournament with Johnny. How is the style difference from working in WWE all those years to now you're into All Japan? Now, how are you approached? Who from the office called you and said, "Hey, we want you to fight Butterbean"?
I believe it was Jim Ross.
Imagine that.
Yeah, imagine that. And actually, to be honest, I watched him fight. You know, I was like, well, you know, and I've had a lot of fights, and. Okay, and I legitimately, I can beat him. I think I can beat him.
Yeah.
I can beat him today. So they come up with this thing, you want to fight that? I said, yes. They sent me, WWF sent me to a boxing gym.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
For 5 weeks, I went to a boxing gym.
Yeah.
To learn how to box.
Yeah.
Okay. Wrong thing to do, because now I've done what I've done for years, for 25 years, fought in the streets or whatever, however you want to say, streets and everything that I've done. Now I'm going, and everything I've done is wrong.
Yeah.
But it's worked for me.
It's like you're working against yourself at this point.
Exactly. So now they're teaching me how to hold my feet, hold my hands, punch, body language, and all that.
Yeah.
So I go in this fight as a green fighter. My first fight, 5 weeks of training. Butterbean at that time, so I think he's had like 40 fights.
Yeah.
Okay. So I go out. So I remember the guy said, just get out first, get out first. I think I went out, and when I jabbed, and then he would come over with overhand right, caught me.
Yeah.
You know, and didn't knock me out, knocked me down, and then I think I hit again. I've only seen the match one time.
Okay.
And then I watched it. I think that night I watched it because they showed a replay of it. I watched it. I've never seen it then. If I see it on the internet, I've never watched it. Don't care to watch it.
Yeah.
And I don't care. But it just. But before the match, they said, okay, you can't do takedowns. It's supposed to be a Brawl for All match.
Yeah.
But they made it strictly boxing. They sent me this boxing school, and I did everything different. They didn't want me to lift weights. I dropped like almost 25, 30 pounds.
Wow.
You know, because of the training I was doing and all that. But I was uncomfortable, and I was green. And then even before the fight, I didn't feel right.
Yeah.
You know, that's just me. And then after that, I wish I could have took it back and redone the whole thing.
Yeah.
And done it my way. Same thing might have happened, but I would have been happier. But now he's doing MMA, so I may have my chance to get back.
You might.
Yes.
You might. Going into the fight, obviously you were made the promise with the Brawl for All that you'd have the run with Austin. They didn't come through. Were you made any promises? Hey, after this fight, we're going to do this, and that with you?
No, I could see that. I could see the writing on the wall. I think what was happening, they thought I was getting too hot to handle. I think they thought they couldn't control me because, like I said, I didn't kiss ass.
Yeah.
And I wasn't like, oh, please, let me do something. I was like, hey, what do you guys got for me? Come on. I did this, and you guys aren't doing nothing.
Yeah.
I wasn't really pleasant, but I wasn't rude.
Yeah.
So I can almost see the writing on the wall, and I'm thinking, wow, if I do this Butterbean fight and beat him, they don't have a choice. I was thinking this in my own mind.
Yeah.
They don't have a choice to do something. I mean, they got to do something. If they don't, they're bigger idiots to not do anything with me after the Brawl for All. And I took a chance, and I gambled.
Yeah.
Like I said, anybody could go. This last weekend, Krokoff.
Yeah.
Like, who would ever have thought he would get knocked out with a kick to the head
Exactly.
by a Brazilian, by the guy that you got? I mean, it happens. It happens to the best. And he's one of the best in the world.
Exactly.
So, I got caught.
Yeah.
So that's all I can say about that. But hopefully I'll get my, and since then I've had 2 MMA fights. And the 2 guys I fought, Butterbean's fault.
Yeah.
And I've done better against those 2 than he's done. So that's something for me to look for.
There's obviously money on the table for a rematch with you and Butterbean by somebody.
Well, it depends by who, WWF could bring us back.
Yeah.
But, they don't have any interest in me. And actually, they've had some other storylines. When Bradshaw had his big push, when they and they was doing his thing with Booker T, I called him up. This is, I wasn't, like in the last, I think it was like a year and a half ago. I called him up and said, hey, let me run this idea by you guys. Johnny, I ran the idea by Johnny. Because me and Johnny are friends. And I said, Johnny, listen. I said, Bradshaw, champion, big push, tough guy, running wild all over everybody. How about if I come in, do some stuff, maybe jump him, do whatever. But the object is, I beat him in the Brawl for All. You can show some tapes, and then the final thing, big pay-per-view, he kicks my ass, knocks me out, I'm out for the count. Done.
Yeah.
He's over like $1 million.
Yeah.
They shot it down.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, and then I go, why? And they go, they said that people wouldn't remember. And I went, it takes 2 weeks of TV tapings of showing a few tapes of me going through everybody and knocking him out. But I think what it is, they didn't want to give me the exposure.
Yeah.
Because I have heat and Ross. I think Ross probably shot it down.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the best thing. And I'm thinking if Bradshaw knows this, he'd love it. Because he would love to get his.
Yeah.
Because I knocked him out. He's a tough guy,
Yeah.
He'd love to. Whether it was a work or not, he'd love to be able, and he'd say whatever he wanted.
You think Jim Ross still holds that against you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
Just, I don't think he forgets.
Wow. That's interesting. So how did your time in the WWF finally come to an end?
Then I started going to Japan, and they weren't using me. I said, hey, look, you guys aren't using me. They go, oh, well. I called Vince. I said, why can't I go to Japan? You guys aren't using me. What's it hurting? The rust is staying off me. And that's fine. And then they called me up and was going to give me my release. I said, fine, I'll take it.
TitleMatchNetwork.com